On the 24th of November, 2011, in the afternoon, after I had come home from school, I found myself taken to hell by the Lord to be shown various things. This is not the first time I have been taken to hell. I have had other encounters, and however this particular visit is different, as it has many warnings to people who are still on earth. It is my prayer that all who read or listen to this testimony would take it serious and make sure they avoid hell at all cost and align themselves under the lordship of the Lord Jesus Christ and prepare for his coming. Pastors who do not pay tithe. I saw 4 pastors in hell who were there because they did not pay their tithes. One was called Albert, and another was Daniel, a pastor of Church of Christ, and this church does not believe in tithing. Daniel said he told his congregation not to pay tithes, as it was no longer necessary. He was in hell for basically 2 things. First of all, he was not paying tithes himself, and secondly, because he also stopped others from paying it. For Albert, his church believed in paying tithe, but he thought it was meant for only the congregation and pastors were excluded from paying it. He wished he could come back to earth to start over again and pay his tithes. The other 2 pastors also did not pay, and one of them thought simply he did not think he had to pay it even though he knew he should be paying it, and the other thought ministering before God is not working, so he thought there was no need to pay any tithes. People who used charms. As I walked in those pits, I then was shown many pits full of ladies who used charms to get husbands to marry them. Some used lipsticks, facial makeup kits to seduce men. In one of the pits, I saw a woman named Amagamfua who attended Church of Pentecost. She went for charms from a fetish priest so she could control her husband like a dog. This is why she was in hell, because of using this evil charms. Next to this, I saw another lady called Mavis, who had a pink lipstick on her mouth. She collected this seductive lipstick from an occult man, and it was meant to manipulate men to lust after her, and she would cause men to by all means look for money and give it to her. I then saw a young lady called Vivian, who seemed to be around 24 years old. She had filthy clothing on her in the form of a short indecent dress, and she had long acrylic nails, glossy-looking lipstick, and a scarf on her head. She was in the pit because she went to idols for charms such that, whenever she slept with any man, she hijacked the semen of men to be used for witchcraft rituals. Through her acts 5 men died. These rituals were made so she would obtain money. She said she used to dress indecently and in a seductive way whilst she was on earth and lived at Kwashima in Accra, Ghana. And as I was contemplating the scene above, I turned to the other side, where I saw a certain woman, who was a pastor's wife on earth, and she was called Alice. She also went for charms to charm her husband. She said she was a witch and went for charms. She put her menses in a palm nut soup together with other things for the husband to eat. From that moment, the husband became like her son, so she could control and dominate him. She tied the husband and locked him inside a spiritual bottle. She also killed some of her church members, and when she died, she was immediately thrown in hell for what she had done. As the Lord took me in this tour, I also shown a man called Kwame, who was into occultism. He had a ring on his manhood, sexual part, which made it possible for him to charm prostitutes. So after sleeping with the prostitutes, he then killed them and used their body parts in witchcraft rituals for other people. From this scene, I was then shown a tall man, who went for a charm to seduce young girls to come after him for sex. He had sex with about 1,000 girls and was at the University of Ghana, Legon in Accra, Ghana. He went for penis enlargement and was given some things to plant. This spiritually nailed him to hell, and so in hell he has been nailed in his pit in hell. He was also a youth leader in his church, and had sex with many girls in the church. I later saw a pastor/evangelist called Francis, who was in the Methodist Church. He went for a charm such that anything he said was not refuted. He said when he proposed to girls, they could not resist his charms, and he was also a gay. I also saw a lady newscaster from Ghana who had died. She had facial makeup on. This was given to her by an Indian occultist. The purpose was to get fame, favor, and love from people. She eventually died from diabetes. I then saw 7 pastors who had died in Ghana, and they were all in a secret society, and they were dressed like that. They were all prophets and had magic rings, which they used to perform miracles and prophesy in their churches. They were all screaming in pain. I also saw a gospel singer who died in Ghana. He said he was a pastor, and he went to an Indian man to help him sing. He said this man gave him some oil and made him burn some incense and had a ring that gave him the authority to release many albums. He was required to sleep with women, so in the church he slept with most of the women. In hell, large worms were just going through his body, and he was seriously burning in the fire. He also had the number 666 written on his forehead. I saw a man called Abednego, who had a chain around his neck. Whilst on earth, whenever he went into danger, he used to vanish to escape from death. He eventually died, and is now in hellfire, eternal suffering. I saw some Ghanaians wearing different rings, gold, silver, and brass, and they were all members of secret societies. I was then shown a former finance minister from Ghana, who was in hell for being a member of a secret society, and also, because of acquiring evil powers, to give him a smart brain. I also saw a pastor from Ghana called Alfred, who had consulted the Queen of the Coast for empowerment. He had a ring and a white handkerchief. The handkerchief was for healing, and the ring was for casting out demons. The heat of his torment was 7 times more than the others, who were there for charms. I then saw a lady from Nigeria, who also used charms to charm her husband so that when the husband would die all the property would be willed to her favor. Unfortunately, this woman died, and found herself in hellfire. I then saw various students with bags at their backs. These were from primary, junior high, senior high, and even university. These students went for charms to help them to be smart, learn, hence they were brilliant in school. These could not complete their education, and they all died. I also saw some students from a famous school in Kumasi, Ghana. I saw many medical doctors in hell, and one of them was called Dr. Frempong, who, when he saw me, started saying that when he became a doctor he was afraid, so he joined a secret society where he was given a ring to protect him. He died in an accident and found himself in hellfire. I saw many lawyers, judges, and justices all burning in hellfire. They were all part of secret societies, and also consulted demons for their protection. They had rings that protected them whilst they were alive. I also saw a girl I knew personally at Kwitaso in Kumasi. She went to consult a fetish so she could snatch her best friend's boyfriend. She died a shameful death afterwards, and she is now in hell. I then saw a man called Budo, who was at Buakram in Kumasi, Ghana, when he was alive. This man was so strong and powerful that even the police were scared of him. He told me he went to Satan for powers to be very strong and powerful. He had protection against guns, knives, spears, and all other weapons. He said the powers made his body like a metal, so even a bullet would only mark the body, but cannot penetrate, and he had to sell his soul to the devil in order to achieve that. This man is also now in hell, and suffering, as the demons use red, hot spears to pierce his body and tear his body apart. I then saw prostitutes who were being chased around by demons in hell. These demons were raping these girls in the midst of the fire. These girls went for charms to help them to conduct their business as prostitutes, so that they could not be harmed or killed. One of them was called Jonah, and she said I had the power to vanish when there was danger. All these girls were in hellfire suffering seriously. I saw one woman from Ghana called Annie Afua. She went for holy water from a prophet in Ghana with a big gallon. She treated the water as her god. This water was demonic, and when she died she ended up in hell. I also saw Frank, who was also from Ghana. He went for a handkerchief from a prophet, so that any time he rubs it on his face, he gets favors everywhere he went. This handkerchief was demonic, and he died in his sins. I then saw at a distance away a valley, and there were about 10,000 people burning in the larva of fire there. The demon was laughing and mocking them and said, "All these used our magic rings." When I got close I just knew the name of one man in the group, called Pastor Afrique from Ghana. He said he went for a ring for healing. There were about 2,000 pastors in that section of hell for using magical rings. These were from different countries in the world. I was then shown a young man I knew in Kumasi and had died. This man was handsome and when alive, and he had many girlfriends, He was in hell for fornication. I then saw a hot band around his waist which was burning him and cutting him. He said, "These are the useless things I went for whilst on earth." I then saw 5 demons with big bags containing different currencies, and these were being taken to those who did charms for people.